Welcome back, dear listeners, to another episode of Democracy Unveiled. I'm Giovanni, and today we are meeting Anna, a young activist who will share her views about what democracy has to offer to its citizens. Hello, Anna.
Hi, Giovanni. Thank you for inviting me. I come directly from the human rights protest in front of the City Hall.
Yes, I saw in the news that there was a lot of people on the streets today. Are you allowed to occupy the streets and stop the city to demonstrate? Won't the police come and kick you out?
Yes, as you can see, there are many people who believe that we should defend human rights all over the world. And of course, they let us organize a peaceful demonstration. We live in a democratic state that allows freedom of expression and association.
Here we are with democracy. Do you really think it does something for the citizens?
Of course, Giovanni, democracy is not just a long, boring word. It's something that affects our lives on a daily basis. Let's start with the basics. Human rights and fundamental freedoms.
Well, that's true, because imagine living in a place where you don't have the right to express yourself, give your opinion, or practice whatever religion you want. It would be like taking away your power to be yourself.
Of course. And speaking of opinions, another key aspect is freedom of association. In a democracy, you can join groups, organizations, and movements that share your values and goals. You can fight for what you believe in and work with others to bring about real change.
Sure, Anna, that's why you can be here at the protest, isn't it? That's why there are also collective organizations and movements.
In other words, everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and the right of association. The right to peaceful assembly includes the right to hold meetings, sit-ins, strikes, rallies, demonstrations, or protests, both online and offline. The right to freedom of association involves the right of individuals to interact and organize among themselves to collectively express, promote, pursue, and defend common interests.
In addition, there is also freedom of expression, isn't there? As far as I know, in a democracy, you are free to express your opinions and ideas.
Besides, without freedom of expression, there is no freedom of the press, written, radio, audio-visual, and digital, and therefore it is linked to freedom of information, academic freedom, and democracy. It would be inconceivable that in a democratic state we could not express ourselves freely.
To sum up, freedom of association, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of opinion are rights, and as such, they allow you to be here today demonstrating in favor of guaranteeing human rights around the world, right?
In other words, human rights are the rights we have basically because we exist as human beings. These universal rights are inherent to all of us, regardless of our nationality, gender, ethnic or national origin, color, religion, language, or any other condition. However, there are still many people in the world who have some of their most fundamental rights violated.
So I understand that a democratic state directly recognizes and watches over the fulfillment of these fundamental rights and freedoms, right?
I see that you don't find this democracy thing so boring. Yes, democracy provides an environment that respects fundamental freedoms and human rights, and in which the freely expressed will of the people is exercised. Citizens have a voice in decisions and can hold decision-makers accountable. Women and men have equal rights, and all people are free from discrimination.
All true, but Anna, you know that not everything is a bed of roses. Sometimes people feel disillusioned with democracy. They feel that their voices are not heard or that politicians don't keep their promises.
You're right, but that's part of democracy. You won't always get what you want right away, but you have the power to keep fighting for change. Democracy is like a long game in which we are all players and a little bit coach. Democracy is not just a system. It is we, the citizens, who make it work. Our votes and actions matter. How else do you think all the rights and freedoms we've been talking about have been achieved?
I imagine that all these rights have not been achieved overnight.
Not at all. There were brave people who fought for us to have these freedoms, like those who fought for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948.
That's what I was going to ask you, if these rights are included in any declaration or treaty.
Of course, they are all contained in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a landmark document in the history of human rights. Drafted by representatives from all regions of the world, the Declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris on December 10, 1948, as a common ideal for which all peoples and nations should strive.
You know a lot about the subject, Anna. I was delighted to hear from you. How fortunate to have met you today. I think after all we've talked about, I'll join you for a while at the protest later today.
That's great, Giovanni. I love hearing that. Now you know democracy is our stage and we are the main actors. So, every time you feel like your voice is not being heard enough, remember that democracy is like an app that is constantly updating and has many ways to allow you to voice your opinion.
Well said, Anna. Thank you, and thanks our audience for listening. That was a great episode of Democracy Unveiled. See you soon.